Upset someone unfollowed you? Vlad the Impaler once threw a dinner party, then impaled all the guests. And you're mad about a text left on read? Try surviving brunch with him. Born in blood and hostage politics. Vlad III was born in 1431 in the town of Sighisoara, in Transylvania. His dad? Vlad II Dracula. That nickname came from the Order of the Dragon, a Catholic military group fighting the Ottomans. So yes, Vlad was literally born into a dragon cult. Cool start. But it wasn't peaceful. His homeland, Wallachia, was caught between two giants, Hungary and the Ottoman Empire. His father bounced alliances like it was a chess game. 1 year with Hungary, the next with the Turks. Pick a side? No thanks, he picked chaos. When Vlad was around 11, his dad made a deal with the Ottomans. A nasty one. He gave up 2 sons, Vlad and his younger brother Radu, as political hostages to Sultan Murad II. That's not a parenting move you read about in fairy tales. Hi boys, meet your new babysitter, he might execute you. They were held in Edirne, the Ottoman capital. There, young Vlad got an intense education, Turkish, swordplay, horseback combat, the Quran. Basically warrior school with constant threats of death. Radu played nice. Vlad? Not so much. He hated his captors and plotted revenge before he even hit puberty. Back in Wallachia, things got worse. In 1447, Vlad's father and older brother Mircea were killed. The local nobles, the boyars, betrayed them. His dad was ambushed in the woods. Mircea? He was blinded with hot metal and buried alive. All while Vlad sat locked up in enemy territory. So by age 16, Vlad had a dead dad, a dead brother, a homeland in chaos, and a personal vendetta against the people who did it. What's a traumatized hostage to do? Wait, watch, plot, and sharpen everything. His mind, his sword, and eventually some stakes. This wasn't Dracula yet. This was a boy built in fire, betrayal, and Ottoman mind games. He wasn't thinking about bloodsucking. He was thinking about payback. And once he got free, everyone who crossed him would beg for the grave. First try at power. Vlad escaped Ottoman control in 1448, and guess what he did first? Tried to take the throne of Wallachia. Not next year, not eventually, immediately. He was 17, furious, and somehow convinced the Ottomans to back him, at least for now. Wallachia's ruler at the time was Vladislav II, a pro-Hungarian noble who'd helped kill Vlad's father. Vlad's opening move? Wait until Vladislav was off fighting in the Balkans, then sneak into Wallachia and declare himself ruler. Smooth. For about 2 months, it worked. Vlad sat on the throne, handed out titles, and probably made a list of everyone he planned to murder later. But Vladislav came back early and angry. He had Hungarian troops, and Vlad had very little. He lost the throne just as fast as he got it. So Vlad ran. He fled to Moldavia, where he had some distant family ties. But even there, things were a mess. Moldavia's rulers were being murdered every few months. Vlad laid low and waited. Again. Patience was kind of his thing when he wasn't stabbing people. By 1451, he ended up in Hungary under the watch of John Hunyadi, the powerful governor who basically ran the country. Hunyadi hated Vlad's dad. He'd helped kill him, but he also hated the Ottomans more. So Vlad just had to bide his time, say the right things, and not die. For several years, Vlad trained, watched, and waited. He had no throne, no army, no allies, and no money. What he had was rage and memory. He didn't forget the boyars. He didn't forget the Ottomans. And he definitely didn't forget Vladislav II. This short little reign, it taught him something. Power isn't about titles, it's about fear. If you want to keep a throne in a place like Wallachia, kindness won't save you. But brutality? That just might. Round 1 was a failure. Round 2 would be a horror show. Return with a vengeance. In 1456, Vlad came back swinging. With help from Hungary, specifically John Hunyadi, he took the Wallachian throne for the second time. But this wasn't the same boy who got kicked out in 1448. This was a man with a kill list and zero patience. First order of business? Handle Vladislav II. Vlad challenged him to single combat. They fought, swords out, one-on-one. Vlad won. Vladislav's head rolled. That was his welcome back message to the rest of Wallachia. Next, the boyars, the nobles who betrayed his father. He had a plan for them, a nasty one. In 1457, Vlad threw a big Easter feast and invited hundreds of them. They showed up in fancy clothes, ready to party. He locked the doors. The elderly were impaled on the spot. The young and healthy were marched 50 miles to Poenary and forced to build his cliffside fortress. Most of them died from exhaustion. Why? Vlad didn't trust anyone, especially the aristocrats. He replaced them with commoners, loyalists, and foreigners, people too scared to betray him. But he didn't stop there. Vlad launched a massive crackdown across the country. Thieves, traitors, beggars, merchants who cheated customers, impaled. Suspicious travelers, impaled. People who annoyed him? You guessed it, impaled. One story says he had a golden cup placed in a public square. Anyone could drink from it, but no one dared steal it. Why? Because Vlad's punishments were public, grotesque, and unforgettable. People walked straight, talked soft, and didn't breathe wrong. By 1458, Vlad had turned Wallachia into a blood-soaked surveillance state. He was feared, obeyed, and absolutely not loved. But love wasn't on the menu, order was. And it was working. Trade increased, roads were safer, crime dropped because criminals dropped dead. Vlad didn't just want power, he wanted revenge, control, and fear. And now he had all three. He wasn't done yet, though, not even close. Because next, he set his sights on something bigger, the Ottoman Empire. He didn't care that they were stronger, or richer, or better armed. He'd lived in their house. He'd seen how they operated. And now he was ready to make them bleed. Spoiler, he did, a lot. The Forest of the Impaled. By the early 1460s, Vlad had one main obsession, scaring the life out of the Ottoman Empire, and he meant that literally. In 1461, Sultan Mehmed II, the same guy who conquered Constantinople, sent envoys to Wallachia. They wore their turbans into Vlad's court. Custom, right? Vlad asked why they wouldn't remove them. Religious tradition, they said. Vlad nodded, then nailed the turbans to their skulls, said they wouldn't need to worry about removing them again. It was a message. Wallachia wasn't playing nice anymore. Soon after, he launched a full-blown campaign against Ottoman forces near the Danube. He raided towns, burned crops, poisoned wells, and massacred thousands. And this wasn't random killing. It was tactical. Every corpse he left behind was a sign. He wasn't just at war, he was creating a horror show. Then came the Forest of the Impaled. In 1462, Mehmed invaded Wallachia with over 90,000 troops. He expected an easy victory. Instead, he arrived at the gates of Targovishte and found a landscape out of hell, about 20,000 bodies, rotting on stakes, arranged in rows. Turks, traitors, even women and children, impaled and left to rot. It wasn't subtle, it was psychological warfare. And it worked. Mehmed reportedly gagged at the sight. His troops were shaken. Some just turned around. This wasn't a man defending his homeland. This was a guy who weaponized death like it was a marching band. Everybody told a story. Every stake was a warning. Come closer, and this is you. And Vlad didn't stop. He carried out night raids on the Ottoman camp, using disguise and chaos to create maximum fear. One report said he nearly reached Mehmed's tent. Others say thousands of Turks died in the ambushes. But even for Vlad, this was risky. He was outnumbered, outgunned, and now fully in the Ottoman crosshairs. His scorched earth tactics left his people starving. His enemies were closing in. And inside Wallachia, the nobles he hadn't killed were plotting again. Still, he did what he set out to do, made the most powerful army in the world think twice. And he wasn't done ticking people off. Because next, his biggest enemy wouldn't be Mehmed, it would be his own brother. War with the Ottoman Empire. By 1461, Vlad wasn't poking the bear, he was stabbing it in the face. He crossed the Danube and attacked Ottoman strongholds with zero warning. Over a 2-week span, he claimed to have killed over 23,000 Turks, not just soldiers, but civilians too. He even wrote Sultan Mehmed II a letter bragging about it. Yes, bragging. Numbers included. The Ottomans were furious. So Mehmed launched a full invasion in 1462. His army? Somewhere between 60,000 and 90,000 men. Vlad's army? Barely 20,000. Mostly peasants and mercenaries. Odds were brutal. So Vlad didn't play fair. He used scorched earth tactics, burned villages, torched fields, poisoned wells, and destroyed food stores. His own people starved, but the Ottomans starved faster. If he couldn't win with swords, he'd win with disease and famine. And then came the night attack at Targovishte. On June 17, 1462, under cover of darkness, Vlad led a surprise strike on Mehmed's massive camp. He dressed his troops in Ottoman uniforms and launched chaos. Fires everywhere. Camels stabbed, tents slashed, soldiers screaming. Vlad's goal? Kill Mehmed himself. He missed, but barely. One Ottoman report claimed 15,000 soldiers died that night, many from friendly fire. They were too confused to fight back properly. The camp was in full panic mode. Mehmed survived, but his confidence took a hit. He reached Targovishte expecting victory, and instead found a wall of 20,000 impaled corpses. The Forest of the Impaled wasn't just gross but demoralizing. Historians say Mehmed left without fully conquering Wallachia. But Vlad didn't win either. His people were exhausted, starving, and furious. Wallachia nobles, those he hadn't killed, started turning on him. And then the Ottomans played their next card, Radu the Handsome, Vlad's younger brother. Ottoman trained, charming, popular. Radu marched into Wallachia with Ottoman backing and promises of peace. Tired locals saw him as the better option. Vlad was losing ground fast, not just in battle but in loyalty. He retreated to the mountains, hunted, desperate, cornered. Brother versus brother. Vlad had just survived the biggest Ottoman invasion of his life, only to be replaced by his own brother. Radu Sel Frumos, or Radu the Handsome, strolled into Wallachia backed by a fresh Ottoman army and a whole lot of charm. Unlike Vlad, Radu smiled. He negotiated. He didn't impale people at brunch. The boyars, Wallachia's exhausted, terrified noble class, welcomed Radu with open arms. They were done with Vlad's horror movie leadership. And let's be honest, if your choices are handsome peace guy or man who decorates with corpses, you pick the one not sharpening stakes. Vlad fled into the Carpathian Mountains with a small group of loyalists. He didn't surrender, he never did. But support dried up fast. Even his supposed allies in Hungary started to distance themselves. He was looking more like a liability than a hero. Desperate, Vlad turned to Matthias Corvinus, king of Hungary, for help. They had worked together before, and Hungary had a major interest in keeping the Ottomans out of Europe. But this time, Corvinus didn't send troops, he sent shackles. In November 1462, Vlad was arrested near Brasov. The official reason? Some forged letters that supposedly showed Vlad plotting with the Ottomans. Most historians agree those letters were fake, possibly made up by Corvinus himself to justify locking Vlad up without upsetting the Pope. So, just like that, Vlad went from guerrilla warlord to political prisoner. He was thrown into a Hungarian fortress and held for 12 years. Meanwhile, Radu ruled Wallachia under Ottoman watch. He wasn't cruel like Vlad, but he wasn't exactly free either. He was a puppet with a crown, and over time, he struggled to hold power. Enemies circled him too. As for Vlad, he spent those years in limbo. He was hated, feared, but also oddly admired. Even in prison, stories about him spread like wildfire, most of them horrific, some of them true, many of them exaggerated. But Vlad wasn't finished. Not yet. Prison, propaganda, and German tabloids. Vlad spent 12 years locked up in Hungary. But even behind bars, he stayed busy by becoming Europe's most infamous psychopath. Not in person, on paper. It started with German pamphlets, the 15th century version of clickbait. Printed in cities like Nuremberg and Bamberg, these woodcut tabloids painted Vlad as a monster. Not a tyrant. A literal demon. They gave him a new nickname, Kaziglu Bey, or the Impaler Prince. These stories weren't subtle. One said he roasted children and fed them to their mothers. Another claimed he nailed hats to people's heads, cut off women's breasts, and used body parts as decor. A favorite? He supposedly made one man eat his own cooked flesh. These weren't exaggerations. They were publishing gold. Germany couldn't get enough. Dozens of versions circulated across the Holy Roman Empire. Vlad became the medieval poster boy for cruelty and sold a lot of pamphlets in the process. The irony? Many of these accounts came from the Saxon merchants Vlad had clashed with years earlier. So, yes, it was part truth, part revenge campaign, and 100% terrifying. Meanwhile, in Hungary, Vlad wasn't exactly in a dungeon the whole time. Some accounts say he was later moved to a more comfortable house arrest near Buda. He even got married to a Hungarian noblewoman, possibly the cousin of Matthias Corvinus. He started going to church, cleaned up his image, and tried to look less stabby. Behind the scenes, politics shifted. The Ottomans were gaining ground again. Radu, Vlad's brother, was now dead. Wallachia needed someone ruthless enough to stand up to the Turks. Suddenly, Vlad didn't look so bad. By 1475, Corvinus was ready to let the monster out of the box. Vlad was released, rearmed, and repositioned for a comeback, a third shot at the throne. But he wasn't returning as the fiery prince who torched villages. He was older now, meaner, sharper, and far more calculated. Still, the world hadn't forgotten. The forests of stakes, the rumors of boiling cauldrons, the feast of human limbs, those stories had legs, and they were still running. Final comeback. 12 years in captivity, and Vlad still wasn't done. In 1476, he got one last shot. Wallachia was in chaos again, and Radu was dead. Ottoman-backed puppets were rotating through the throne like it was a part-time job, and Hungary needed someone terrifying to bring order. So they called up their favorite war criminal. With support from Stephen the Great of Moldavia and Matthias Corvinus, Vlad raised a new army, small, scrappy, and brutal, just how he liked it. By fall, he marched back into Wallachia and seized the throne for the third time. That's right, 3 reigns, the guy just wouldn't stay buried. But Wallachia had changed. His enemies weren't just external now. The nobles who had once betrayed his family still held power. The Ottomans still lurked nearby. And the people? Exhausted. Still, Vlad went straight back to form. He ordered executions, cleansed the court, crushed dissent. No slow ramp-up. He had a small window and planned to rule like it was his last day. Because it might have been. His final reign lasted barely 2 months. That was it. Death and head in a jar. Vlad's third reign was so short, most people didn't even realize he was back before he was dead. After clawing his way to power once again in late 1476, his final act lasted just 2 months. He barely had time to finish unpacking his torture gear. What happened? Ambush. While riding near Bucharest with a small group of men, Vlad was attacked and killed. No war drums, no dramatic duel, just a fast, brutal skirmish. Who did it? That part's still debated. Some say Ottoman assassins. Others think it was a mistake by his own soldiers who confused him with the enemy. Either way, Vlad's head ended up in a bucket. And not just any bucket, preserved in honey for freshness and shipped straight to Sultan Mehmed II. The same guy who'd once retreated after seeing 20,000 impaled corpses was now grinning at Vlad's severed face. The head was mounted on a spike and put on display in Istanbul, proof that the bogeyman of the Balkans was finally gone. His body? That's another mystery. Most historians believe he was buried at Snagov Monastery, an island church north of Bucharest. But when archaeologists opened the supposed tomb in the 1930s, it was empty, no bones and coffin. What's left was dust and doubt. Some rumors say Vlad was secretly buried elsewhere. Others think his remains were looted or destroyed. And of course, the Dracula crowd claims he rose from the grave. No surprise there. But back in 1477, there was no vampire myth yet, just a bloody, broken legacy. He ruled Wallachia 3 times, each ending in chaos. He killed thousands, fought 2 empires, and never backed down. His enemies feared him. His people survived him. No one really liked him. There were no songs, no statues, just that honey-soaked head slowly rotting on a stick in a city far from home. For a man who built a kingdom on fear, he died quietly, fast, almost embarrassingly normal. And yet, that wasn't the last anyone heard of Vlad the Impaler. Because 5 centuries later, some Irish guy with a pen would turn this real-life warlord into something worse. Not just a prince of Wallachia, but the prince of darkness. Not Dracula yet, that came later. Vlad the Impaler didn't drink blood. He didn't sleep in a coffin. He didn't turn into a bat. But in 1897, a man named Bram Stoker gave him a new life, as Count Dracula, the world's favorite undead aristocrat. Here's the twist. Stoker never once called Vlad a vampire. In fact, he barely knew anything about him. Stoker was an Irish theater manager who read a book about Eastern European history, saw the name Dracula, and thought, yeah, that sounds evil enough. The name Dracula comes from Dracula, which literally meant son of Dracul. Vlad's father, Vlad II, was called Dracul because he joined the Order of the Dragon, a Catholic military group. In Romanian, Dracul means dragon. But over time, it also came to mean devil. So Vlad the Impaler? Son of the devil. Not exactly a PR win. Stoker read about that in a footnote and ran with it. His Dracula was a suave Transylvanian count who lived forever, slept by day, and had a taste for virgins. None of that had anything to do with the real Vlad, who was from Wallachia, not Transylvania, and definitely didn't sparkle in moonlight. Still, the legend exploded. Dracula became a symbol of Eastern European creepiness. Then came the movies, starting with Nosferatu in 1922, then Bela Lugosi in 1931, and later Christopher Lee, Gary Oldman, and the guy from Twilight. Suddenly, Vlad's entire legacy got hijacked by fangs and capes. Meanwhile, back in Romania, the real Vlad became a weird kind of folk hero. Some saw him as a patriot who stood up to invaders. Others still whispered about his cruelty. Schools taught him. Statues went up. Tourists came. A lot of money started flowing into Dracula tours, people hunting for castles he never lived in. So, how did a warlord who skewered tens of thousands of people become a Halloween costume? Simple. The real Vlad was too violent for history books but too fascinating to forget. So the world did what it always does, made a monster into a myth. And maybe that's exactly how Vlad would have wanted it. Not remembered for love, just never forgotten.